When you put on that frickin' jersey, you've got to give everything you have. When you walk off that field, you better walk off saying we did everything possible today that we couldn't have given any more. Because if you leave anything on the table, then you shouldn't be on that team.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Inside American Soccer. As you can see, I am not Tom Boger. I'm Matt Doyle, the Armchair Analyst for MLS. You may know me from my columns at MLSsoccer.com and, of course, the old podcast Extra Time. And I'll be filling in for Tom for a few weeks because Tom and his wife had a baby. So Tom is taking some time off to do some dad stuff for the next few weeks. Congratulations to now all three of the Bogerts, including new arrival Theo Thomas Bogert. All three are doing well, and I'm told that the Philadelphia Union have already filed a discovery claim. They're on top of it, guys. Just absolutely on top of it with developing the youngsters. I'm, of course, joined by Tab Ramos, Tom's friend, and soon to be mine, I think, one of the greatest players in U.S. soccer history, three-time U.S. World Cup veteran, and the original Metro star. Had to add that one in there. Yep. And we're joined by one of Tab's good friends, a great guest today, Marcelo Balboa, also a three-time World Cup veteran for the U.S., named to the CONCACAF Team of the Century, two-time U.S. Soccer Player of the Year, four-time MLS All-Star, nearly scored the greatest goal in U.S. men's World Cup history, does, I'm told, still have the best hair in U.S. men's World Cup history. And also was a Metro star for a hot minute, right at the end there. Guys, It is my honor to be joined by the two of you today on this show.
Well, first of all, let me also welcome Marcelo on the show. Obviously, Marcelo is a great friend. We were fortunate enough to play in 3 World Cups together, which obviously it's a lot to say. Marcelo, Eric Winalda, and myself were the only 3 to play all 3 of the World Cups in the 90s together. And also send a big congrats to Tom, obviously. Theo now is our new 26-born New Jersey talent. And I'm sure they say, I did hear that Tom's dad was a really good player, and it says that sometimes it skips a generation. So hey, let's not tell Tom that part. But I think we have a real good shot with Theo being the next New Jersey great talent to come along. So thank you, Matt, also for coming on board. And of course, we became friends the moment you were named on this show. So so I think we're all good. But overall, yeah, thank you, Marcelo, for coming on with us.
Listen, my pleasure, you know that. And I always have a great time talking soccer with you, good friend. Tom, congrats. Remember that homegrowns can be sold. So let's remember that. So
someone's going to have to explain that to his wife.
Yeah, it's okay. It's, there's a lot of soccer movement. We're good. But I appreciate you guys having me.
We appreciate you being here, buddy. Today we are going to talk a few things around the U.S. men's national team, but also a little bit on El Tri. We're going to talk World Cup ticket prices. We are going to get Marcelo's best 11 for the U.S. men's national team. It has become a tradition on this show. Every guest we have on has to give theirs. And it's interesting to see that unfold because there's like subtle differences in how everybody perceives not just the player pool, but the way Pochettino is lining things up. And of course, we've already said it. These guys, heart and soul of the U.S. team through the 90s. We're going to get some very good inside the locker room stories, including the story of the bicycle kick that almost was from Marcelo Balboa. The bicycle kick that I believe Pele called the most beautiful moment from the 1994 World Cup. That always stuck with me. I was a 17-year-old fan, and of course I was heartbroken over that being just wide, but thrilled by the win over Colombia. I was obviously heartbroken and infuriated by what happened to Tab in the round of 16, but ultimately ended up being so proud of what you guys helped launch in that moment.
Yeah, I'm still pretty pissed about the bicycle kick too. So just Are we friends, Doyle? I don't know. Are you friends with Tab now? Are we friends? Because
We're working towards it, right?
All right, cool. We'll work on that. So, listen. We just had a reunion with the '94 group. Tab couldn't be there. We missed you, buddy. But it was interesting because I think to this day they really don't give that group that much credit, because when you play Colombia and you beat Colombia, and you had just think about it. The back four didn't have a club team. We trained as a national team. Tony Meola didn't have a club team. Mike Sorber didn't have a club team. The guys came in. Tab came in. Harksey came in. Winalda came in. Ernie Stewart. 5 guys that started on that team had club teams. The rest didn't have a club team. So for Boer to mesh that group together and for us to get out of the group to beat Colombia, I still think when you look at that situation and what we had, it is probably the biggest win in U.S. soccer history, because we didn't have a club team. I didn't have anywhere to go play every week, and I had to play with the national team.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that, right? Just the times were so different. But having said that, there was that commitment from players and from the group, right? And I think those years, between 90 and 95 is where that determination of what it was like to be an American and play in an American team was like. And I think that's what the beginning of what we got our fans used to, and Matt was talking about watching that 94 World Cup. I think a lot of fans were created in that World Cup from being able to play it at home, because I know that you, like me, run into a lot of people who say, hey, the first time I watched, the national team play was in 1994. And of course, we had already played the 90 World Cup, and 90 World Cup, no one even knew we went. But it was the beginning of us and the American player becoming not only a player that could play and compete against international teams, but an American player that would fight more than everybody else that we played against. So we always had a little bit of an advantage that way.
And now, 32 years later, the Men's World Cup is back on home soil. And we're seeing this group of players maybe rediscover some of their fight in the past half dozen games. And I think the fan base as a whole, they would want your perspective on why a home World Cup, and how, I guess, a home World Cup is different than anything these players have felt before.
Listen, times were different back when we played. We were desperate. We were in a situation, if we didn't play well, if we didn't give everything we had, we were never going to open doors. Now, I think when you look at that World Cup, we kind of opened the world's eyes of what we can do, the potential the United States has, and not in terms of attendance, because it's still the highest viewed World Cup, highest attended World Cup. But I think it opened people's eyes that we were taking the sport seriously. And especially when you talk about Colombia and you talk about other games that we've played, beating England, I think we opened a lot of people's eyes. Now, I think for the first time in many, many, many years, these guys have more pressure than ever. They have to produce. They have to get results. It's no longer, when you watch games now and people are pissed because, they're not giving 100% effort. They're not this, they're not that. So this is where we wanted soccer to grow to, where expectations were high. Listen, getting out of the group is not okay anymore. It really isn't for me. And if it is for us as a country, then we're still further back behind than I thought we were. For me, it's a quarterfinal. If it's not a quarterfinal this trip or this World Cup, then it's not a successful World Cup. We've grown way too much in 30 years to say that it's okay to get out of the group anymore. So, and I think that goes for Mexico. I think that goes for Canada. So this is finally where we should be, where these players have pressure representing this badge. They have pressure now.
This is really interesting what you're saying, Marcelo, because there's no doubt that over the years it has, and it is for really teams in all sports, it's a lot easier to be the underdog, right? It's a lot easier, when you make plays that really matter, for people to reward you for making plays when you were not expected to make them, right? And now we have a team with good players who play on strong clubs all over the world, and they're expected to make plays, and they're expected to take us to the next level. We also, let's not forget, hired a coach that we're paying a lot of money to take us somewhere where we haven't been before, right? And so, just in a World Cup, you always depend sometimes on the matchups you have, on the groups you get, on who you get in the second round, who you get after that, right? But having said all those things, it's hard to disagree with you thinking that anything less than a quarterfinal will be a success. And just because of the investment that we've made and where the players are, I think we need to be asking for that.
So that would mean 2 knockout round victories. Because remember, this World Cup goes to knockout rounds as round of 32, then round of 16. Of course, in World Cups the past 30 years, it always went from the group stage straight into the round of 16. Yeah. It does seem doable. If you look at the shape of the roster, the way these guys have been playing, specifically Weston McKennie, I'm thinking of for Juventus right now, who's playing, in my opinion, the best ball of his life. He seems like an emotional leader. But I also think back to what you guys were talking about with 94 and the sort of galvanizing effect. And it seemed like there were multiple emotional leaders in that team. Do you see the same sort of thing in this group, or is it still a work in progress?
Yeah, I think it's a work in progress, because when you go back to historically throughout the teams, the Michael Bradleys, the Tim Howards in the group, when you look at our group, the personalities you had, and there were leaders who led by example. Tab was a quiet, but he was a leader on the field. When he played, he performed. He gave everything he had. You had other guys who were more vocal. Tony was very vocal. I was a little bit more vocal. So I think when you look at this group, who's the vocal leader? Exactly. Both exactly. That's my point. That's my point. Exactly. Yeah. That's my point. And you got to have a vocal leader. And I understand Christian is the main guy, but he's a quiet leader. He's like Tab. He's a quiet leader. He wants to play. He wants to show you what he can do. So who's going to be, besides Tyler Adams, who's going to be that guy that's going to scream, that's going to push, and it's going to demand these guys to push themselves on the field? And I think that's where my concern is a little bit, because of the fact that you've got to have a leader on every line, from the goalkeeper to the defense to the midfield to the forward. Tell me who these leaders are. And I think if you don't have that bite, that leader, and you have leaders by example, but I don't think you have a vocal leader that's going to really grab this team by the cojones and say, let's go.
One of the things that's happened with this team too, that I think we have to give the players a little credit for this, is it's been hard to find the vocal leader when we've had over 70 players called up over the last, 12, 14 months. That's a lot of players. At the same time, we've changed the way we played. At the same time, it seems like we've changed the rules. Because it seems to be like the national team, you come in and out and you have some fun and you go away. And it seems like now it's a little bit more strict. You come in, starting this summer, sort of, Pochettino finally put his foot down and said, this is the way things are going to work on the national team. So I think we will see that vocal leader come along over the next couple months as we go into the World Cup. There's certainly guys that could take that role. I think, Matt, I think you mentioning McKennie and the situation he's in now, I mean, McKennie is a leader. He's a leader. He takes the game by the scruff of the neck, and no game is too big for him. And I think that's a great sign to have a player like that. And then, of course, you have let's say the normal suspects. You have your Tyler Adams and your Chris Richards, who, let's not forget, starting in the summer, Chris Richards started to be that vocal leader, the one that gets in the middle of the fights, and he's going to be starting, for us. So there's a couple of players who are potential candidates to become that, but I think it remains to be seen over the next couple months.
Well, we're going to start to see it next month with the March friendlies, and Mauricio Pochettino was pretty explicit about the fact that he wants those to feel like the World Cup. And I'm going to give you the quote. The idea is that the World Cup will start in March. It's time to show, like we were showing in our last camp, our identity, our way to play, and the way we want to perform at the World Cup. Do you guys agree with that? Is it like time for experimentation is done, and like you want to see the guys go out and treat this like, okay, first whistle, it's the group stage, we're at the World Cup?
You can't simulate a World Cup. You can't simulate a World Cup game. So I understand what he's trying to say, but experimentation should have been done a while ago, I think. I think there's been too much rotation, but I think that's Pochettino having to do his thing. Also, when you look at this team, when was the last time the full team was together. It's been a long time. This group right now that he's had for the month or so, they've understood the system, they've played it, but now you bring in Weston McKennie, and if Adams is healthy, you bring in Adams, you bring in Robinson, you bring in Dest, you bring in Bulligan. So now all of a sudden, there's 6 players that have to get used to this system again of what he wants to play, this fluid 3, fluid 4. It kind of rotates back and forth. So I think it'll be interesting to see March, to see how, when he has his full team together, how they perform, what attitude they come out with, and do they understand really this 3-4-2-1/4 in the back 5-1. You know what I mean? For me, it'll be a very telling. Plus, it'll also give us an indication of who we'll probably see in the 26-man roster.
Yeah, for me, and I agree with all the things you've said, but for me, I have a different view altogether of what the national team should be. I think the national team is about you get the best 11 players that you have at any point in time, and you go play against another country to win the game. That's the way I see the national team. Players aren't full-time employees of U.S. Soccer. They go and play for their clubs. So I think, and of course everybody's different, but this is just my opinion, is that your job is just to pick the best players that we have today and have them go beat someone else. And the fact that let's not forget that in September, this is only 5-6 months ago, there were some quotes coming out of the camp saying that results don't matter until the World Cup next summer. We were still saying that 5 months ago. Now things seems like they changed a little bit since we got a couple of results at the end of the fall. And by the way, great results at the end of the fall. And by the way, The team has turned around 180 degrees, and we like where we are at this point. Having said that, I think this should have happened a year and a half ago. This was the reason that we hired Pochettino in the first place. We had gone through a period of 5 or 6 years where we just didn't get a response from the team. And we needed for that to happen earlier. It hadn't happened yet. Now it's happened. I'm happy that Mauricio Pochettino is saying what he's saying now. And let's get moving. Let's start winning big games.
And if you're a fan, maybe get tickets to those March games, because they're going to end up being a lot more affordable than anything that comes to the U.S., Canada, and Mexico this summer. Tim Weah commented on it, saying that the World Cup tickets are too expensive and that lots of real fans will miss matches. His quote, football should still be enjoyed by everyone. I'll translate that. He means soccer should be still be enjoyed by everyone. It's the most popular sport. This World Cup will be good, but it will be more of a show. I'm just a bit disappointed by the ticket prices. And Mauricio Pochettino had thoughts on that too. He said, first of all, I think players need to talk on the pitch, playing football, not outside of it. It is not his duty to evaluate the price of the ticket. And then also my duty is to prepare the team, the U.S. men's national team, in the best way to perform. We're not politicians. It's tough to see, from my perspective, to see a coach shoot down a player like that when the coach is when the player is addressing something that is deeply felt by a lot of the fan base.
Yeah, well, listen, we all have opinions. We're allowed to have an opinion, so we're allowed to express our opinion to whatever we want. So if he wants to talk about ticket prices, he's not the only one in this world, and all over the world that's talking about ticket prices, $250 for parking. So the one thing I'll say about our sport, it's always been freaking affordable. You've always been able to go to a game, whatever you want, take your family and enjoy it. When you take that monetary value of putting it, and a family of 4 can't go see their country play because it's going to cost them $10,000, then to me that's an issue. This is an affordable sport, and I get it. It's 10 times bigger than the Super Bowl, like somebody said it the other day, and prices are so high for the Super Bowl. That's a one-off event. When you talk about the World Cup, it's supposed to be the world's game. It's supposed to be an affordable game so everybody can enjoy it. And you know what? And I have to agree with Tim there. I think that it's gotten ridiculously too expensive to be able to go to a World Cup and enjoy a 90-minute game.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the pricing itself. It's hard to disagree with the fact that it's just way too expensive. right?
Yeah.
Now, from a Pochettino standpoint, I can understand what he's trying to do. I see where he's coming from. He's trying to get control of his team. He's trying to get his team to focus, which is, those are all good things. I'm wondering, though, as we mentioned before, Tim Weah is not an employee of U.S. Soccer. Tim Weah is playing for Marseille. He has his own duties. That's his team. Sometimes he gets called for the national team. This was not during a national team camp. This is Tim Weah speaking at another time where he's not with his team. So I think and again, I'm going to give Mauricio Pochettino the benefit of the doubt that he's already had a conversation with Tim Weah about Tim Weah going after potentially, Tim Howard and Landon Donovan and Alexi Lalas about criticizing the team in the past. Let's say that happened, and this is the reason why now he's making it public. But if that didn't happen before, I would have liked for this to have happened privately. Call Tim Weah, say, Tim, listen, we just focus on the national team. Please don't say anything that has anything else to do with anything outside of our team. And then when he gets asked in the press conference, hey, what did Tim Weah say? Well, you know what? Tim and I have had that discussion already, and it's not something that I want to discuss at this point. That's what I would have liked to have seen. Obviously, it's easier for us to see it from this side, right? It's a lot easier. But I don't think it was handled well at all. And like Marcelo said, Tim Weah has the right to have his opinion about prices. And by the way, Tim Weah is trying to connect with fans, which is always a good thing, right? He's trying to be a little bit more relatable. And for all the people who can say, well, he can afford the tickets, he doesn't need to say that. Well, he does need to say that because he's speaking for the fans. And I think that is a good thing.
Yeah, but that's different. But that's different, isn't it now? Let's be honest. We didn't have social media, so our stuff didn't come out right away. If you got in Soccer America, you had to wait a month for Soccer America to come out, and then your quote came out. So you know what? Social media. Maybe it was better for us not to have social media, but it's whatever it is, it is. But I like the fact that he speaks his mind. There's nothing wrong with that. We spoke our mind, but no one really heard it because there wasn't social media. We couldn't put it out there on Twitter or on Instagram or whatever is out there. You know what I mean? So, listen, I don't think it's going to take away from his playing ability. He knows his freaking job. He knows what he's there to do. So I think it's good that he's connecting, like you said, connecting with the fans. But he's saying things that other people don't have avenue to say. And if they do say it, it's not on a major platform. This is a major platform. He made it very clear he's not happy. And I tell you what, he's not the only one. There's other players out there that are saying the same thing. So good for him.
Yeah, and I think the fans have noticed. Hopefully this ends up not being an issue between the player and the coach. I don't think it will be, especially Tim Weah has been playing pretty well. He's going to play his way into Pochettino's consideration for a starting position, I would reckon. Another guy in consideration for a starting position, Alex Freeman, who officially made his move to Villarreal. The European transfer window has mostly closed at the time we're recording this. I think Turkey is still open, so there might be one or two moves headed to Turkey. But Alex Freeman to Villarreal is a big move. It's not something that I think – it's not something I expected to get done in January because it was clear from his play with Orlando City that he was already in the mix. Yeah. And now he goes into a new situation with a team that does a good job of developing players, good job of putting players in a position to succeed, clearly appreciates what I'll call an MLS archetype of player because they went out and they bought Taniolo O'Shea and they've brought in Tejan Buchanan. And Tab, I think they actually have a need at right back, Villarreal does. So potentially Alex Freeman walks into this lineup.
If I could go first on that. Villarreal, I mean, I've watched them play a lot. They've been rotating a lot between Navarro and Mourinho on that right side. And what happened with them last week in a game, and we mentioned it in the show last week because it had just happened. Juan Foyt, the Argentinian defender, had just gotten injured. So I think, although I'm not a big supporter of that middle of the year transfer, in particular for young players, because inevitably every coach is under pressure and the young players are going to get pushed aside. I think in this case, it's a very good move for him because he likely will have an opportunity to compete directly with someone on the right side, which will likely be Mourinho. And I think he will beat Mourinho out for that spot and be able to play behind Buchanan. And I think those two together could create a lot of havoc in the Spanish league. I really do. And I hope that, if anything, this makes Alex Freeman a lot better between now and June.
Um, I'll leave it up to Tab. Tab watches Spain. He played in Spain. He watches a little bit more. But here's my take. If you're going to make a move, you've got to be making a move where you're going to start. If you're making a move right now at this point of the season where you're going to be getting a game here, a game there, and you're not playing consistently, you're putting yourself in a position where Pochettino could take you off his radar. Okay, so that's I love the move. I think it's a great move. And I'm a big fan of players always getting transferred to Europe, South America, Liga MX, as long as you're going to play and you play consistently. Because this time of year, there's no room for error. You play one game, you don't play the next 5. You play one game. Look at Musa and what's happened to Musa on this national team. He's made some wrong decisions on teams, and where does he sit? We don't even talk about him. But 5 years ago, he was like the man on the midfield. So for Freeman, I think he will make the World Cup team. I think he is a good player that can play that third center back or that wing back. I just hope that the move is solidified by him getting to play consistent minutes. So it's an easier decision for Pochettino. You don't want to make it very difficult right now for Pochettino if you're not playing.
Yeah. A move that didn't happen. Ricardo Pepi, Fulham bid a reported 37 million euros for Ricardo Pepi and PSV, who've done really good business in the past couple transfer windows and who are swimming in a little bit more cash than usual because of that and because they've done well in the Champions League. They said no, and that shocked me because Ricardo Pepi he's a really good goal scorer. In the past 3 years for PSV, he's gone 90 13 times. So he's not a regular 90-minute player for them by any stretch. He's also never scored against Ajax, never scored against Feyenoord, never scored against AZ. So he is a guy who beats up on the smaller teams in the Netherlands, which is not saying that's all he can do, but it is all he has done so far. So I was surprised that Fulham bid the amount that they did and that PSV rejected it. And, oh, yeah, he's going to be out for another 6 weeks. He has a broken arm. So this one was kind of baffling to me that it didn't happen for Ricardo Pepi.
I think it's Ernie Stewart, right, at PSV?
Yep.
So Ernie must have.
I wouldn't want to play poker against that man.
No,
the way
no. I would not. Like I said, Ernie knows what he's doing. If he thinks there's more value out there, obviously he feels there's more on the table for Pepi than 37 million. But I guess I'm a firm believer when being an ex-player, when you have a player, when a team comes in from England and they're offering you that kind of money, let him go. Let him challenge himself. Let him play. With 37 million, I'm sure you can go find yourself another forward. He's not a starter, consistent starter. I don't know. I like I said, I always look at the player side of you, and I love to see players get to play. Everybody, listen, we all talk about everybody wants to play in the EPL. Everybody wants to go play in the EPL. And when you have an opportunity to sell a player for more than you bought him, a lot more than you bought him, I think that that opportunity, that window should be given to that player. But I also understand that you have to protect your team. You have to do what's best for your team. And knowing Ernie Stewart a long time, just like Tab, Tab and Ernie connection, we all know that about Colombia. So, yahoo. Thank God we needed that second goal. God. But no, listen, Ernie's a smart guy. Ernie knows what he's doing. And if Ernie's not letting him go, he's not letting him go for a certain reason.
Yeah. I'll start by giving a lot of credit to the Pepi camp, right? Because, normally when these things come in and a big club comes in for you and you have an opportunity to go play in the world's best league, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to come out and you're going to say, yeah, I want this to happen. And you're going to go to the club office and knock on the door and say, get me out of here because it's a great chance for me. And then either your agent or your dad or somebody is going to be on the press saying, we're leaving, we're out of here. And none of that happened. And I think I want to give a lot of credit for that. There was very little noise, a little bit, but very little noise coming out of the Pepi camp. And I think that's just such a good sign of the relationship that Pepi has with his club. And I think that's great. And the next thing is, At this point, I have to trust 100% that Ernie Stewart knows a lot more than I do. And, Ernie Stewart was able to hold off for Tillman and got over, 40 million for Tillman, which I never would have thought that could have happened either. Not that he doesn't deserve it, by the way, but that's a lot of money for a player that's not going to come in and just turn, that team over right away. I thought personally that the 32 million offer from before was an offer to take already, but Ernie decided that 37 even is not good enough. So you know what? At this point, I think if you're on the board of PSV, you have to trust Ernie 100%, and I think something will likely get done after. It's a big risk, but likely something will happen after the World Cup.
Yeah, my hope for Ricardo Pepi is that he actually gets healthy, he stays healthy, he wins that job with PSV full time, and can play his way into Pochettino's roster. Because right now, I think he's on the outside looking in. If you look at it, he hasn't played that much for Poch. Yeah. When he came into the last camp, he only played 15 minutes versus Paraguay, kind of got manhandled physically, and then didn't play at all against Uruguay in that 5-1 win. That told me something about the way maybe he's perceived. And he's going to have to score a bunch of goals, and he's going to have to put in some real performances once he gets healthy, I think, to change Pochettino's mind. And fingers crossed it happens, because I do think he's the most natural goal scorer among the U.S. number 9s.
Listen, how easy is it for a coach, and Tab knows he was there with Jurgen, you find a goal scorer in the last 2 months of the season that scores 5 or 6 goals, he's on a run, he's on your team. We saw Herculez Gomez pull that off with his group, and he's got hot at the end of the season. He scored some goals. He's on the World Cup team. So all Pepe's got to do is come back, score a few goals, and all of a sudden you open people's eyes. Yeah,
that's one stat nobody will ignore. Yeah. One other bit of transfer news that I wanted to get your guys' takes on. Oed Vargas from the Sounders to Atletico Madrid. Oed Vargas is in my, a triumph of the American developmental program. He came through the ranks. The Sounders got him on the field at 16 in CONCACAF Champions League final, which they won, which no other MLS team has done in the modern version of it. He was excellent in the Leagues Cup final against Lionel Messi and that Inter Miami team. And he filed a one-time switch to play for Mexico. He played really well in these latest friendlies for Mexico. He's probably going to the World Cup, even though the same concerns about that mid-season switch. Is he going to get enough playing time? It looks like he's going to be in the World Cup roster for El Tri anyway. There are two sides of this. There's the U.S. is developing really good players like Brian Gutierrez as well, and Richie Ledesma, a player that Tab had with the U20s. They have the choice. And more of them, it seems, are choosing Mexico. Is that a sign that the U.S. developmental program has sort of turned a corner? Or is it a sign that this is like a looming catastrophe because we're starting to lose players like this on the regular? Whoever wants to take this first, go for it.
I'll go. I had... Oed Vargas came to Colorado when he was 14. He almost played for us. It was either us or Seattle. And they chose Seattle with his parents because Seattle's much closer to Alaska and they can go see their son play all the time. So we had an interest in this kid. And you could see it at 14 that he was different than the kids we had when he came and trained with us. And Seattle said the same thing. So this is a good player. This is a very good player. My concern again now, you knew this move was coming. We heard about it last year that there were 5 or 6 European teams that were after him. Great move. I don't think it matters as much at Mexico right now because they're still experimenting. It looks like with players and stuff. But yeah, he is a very talented player. He is a player who will be with the Mexican national team for a very long time. Are we developing players? Yes. When you look at the U.S. now and you look at Mexico, you look at where am I going to have longevity? Where can I make an impact? And a guy like Vargas, I think, made the right move because I just don't see him being brought in right now. You know what I mean? And he probably looked at that roster and saying, okay, I can go help be a part of something that's going to be a change. And I think he took it that way. Plus his mom and dad, the heritage of being Mexican and how much he wanted to play for Mexico and what it meant to mom and dad also too. So I get the switch, but I feel like we're letting a lot of players slip through our fingers right now. And I think that could be a problem in the long run because this group is very close in age in the United States. And when they start getting at a certain age, are we going to hit that wall again like we did in 2018 where we take this veteran team too far and then there's too big of a gap behind and it takes us a full 4 years to recoup that? That's starting to worry me a little bit because we're letting a lot of good players slide through our fingers, younger players that are in their low 20s, 21, 22, kind of slip through our fingers right now that should be part of the U.S. national team.
Yeah, from a national team standpoint, it's actually a good problem to have, right? Because, you're Oed Vargas, you're a good player, and yet you're looking at the depth chart of the center of midfield, and you're really not necessarily seeing a way in. So from a national team standpoint, that is a good sign. I'll say that, I just love the way the Seattle Sounders have handled this player, right? Because they brought him in early. They were not afraid to play him from the beginning. Look at all of the experience that he has gotten in MLS. And by the way, they are doing a great job by allowing him to leave. Because certainly for the money that they're getting, they would not replace him. And by the way, I do realize that at the end of the year, he would be out of contract and all of that. There's always a way financially to make this work for him to stay at home and still for it to be cheaper for Seattle than replacing the talent that Oed Vargas has on that midfield for Seattle. So I think great job by Seattle Sounders. This has been a great scenario all along since he first stepped on the field when he was 15, right? It was the first time he stepped on. So a great job by Seattle. Now, here's the other side of the coin. Now he goes to Atletico Madrid. You have Barrios, you have Koke who play most of the time. This is a crowded center midfield, right? You have Johnny Cardozo there, who's also there, fighting sort of for the same type of position. And although Obed is slippery and he drops the shoulder and he does stuff, the Spanish league is a little bit different, and you're playing for a big club, that is supposed to win every single time they step on the field, and that's not easy in the Spanish league and in the Champions League and all the other competitions they're in. So I think he's going to step into a situation where he's likely not going to see a lot of playing time. I know that they're not him out because they already announced that he's going to stay with the team. So it's going to be a very difficult first 6 months for him. But I think ultimately this is a great move.
Yeah, nice story too, because Atletico Madrid were his favorite team growing up, and you don't see that a lot. Usually if it's a La Liga team, it's either Real Madrid or Barcelona. So it was a dream move for Oed Vargas. It has been fun to talk through that transfer window and look at how the Sounders have operated. And for us, it's time for a break. We're going to be right back. We'll get into Marcelo's starting 11 for the U.S. men's national team. We'll talk some tactics as well. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Inside American Soccer with Tom Boger and Tab Ramos, wherever you get your podcasts. All right, welcome back to Inside American Soccer. I'm here with Tab Ramos and Marcelo Balboa. And Cello, you know the drill, man. You come on this show, you got to be ready with your starting 11 for the U.S. men's national team for the World Cup. This guy did his homework. That's a San Diego State education right there.
Yeah, that's it. We'll leave it at that. I went to school with Ronaldo. Can I leave it at that? So we were roommates. I'll leave it at that. And I just saw him the other day, this weekend, and he's still Eric Ronaldo. I love it. So, all right, I wanted to put Turner in goal, but I just watching Freeze over the last year. I got to put Freeze in the back. Mm-hmm. Back three, it will be a fluid 3-4. We all know how that goes. Tim Ream, Richards, and I'm still in between Miles Robinson and McKenzie. I'm kind of, I would love to play Freeman in that spot, but I haven't seen him play. So for now, I have McKenzie. 4 in the mid is Robinson, Adams, don't laugh, Tessman, and Dest. Back, because I want a big, strong presence in there. 2 attacking midfielders because, Weston's been playing a little higher and he's been scoring goals. I want to see him alongside Christian. and Bulligan up top. So that's what I want a solid mid, and I think with Tessman and Adams and that back three, it's kind of nice and solid, big, strong presence along with Adams, who leads that group. And then I just want to see Weston McKennie just higher up the pitch, just closer to goal after the way he's playing right now, playing almost as that 9, false 9, whatever you want to go with. And that's my 11. Tab, go, tear it up.
No, well, I mean, I just have some questions. I've given my 11 plenty of times on this show. I was just wondering how you would set up the back three. So those back three, because this is why I want to ask the question, because normally for me, no team can really be good unless your center backs and your goalkeeper, they have to be set, right?
Yeah.
So we've had the difficulty over the last, let's say, couple of years with the goalkeeping situation and, one coming in, one coming out. But now it seems like Freeze is there. He's done a good job. Yeah. There's nothing he has done that would tell any of us that Pochettino would take him out. Why would you do that? He's played well. He's delivered for you. And now he has played, I think, the last 12 games in a row. Yep. He has the experience with the team. He's on his way. So now when you look at what's in front of him, which is the backbone of the team, and obviously I agree with you on the Adams and Tessman, so you have that part. But the center backs, how do you position those three guys? Who is where if we're thinking there's three guys there?
Listen, Tim's obviously left-footed, so you got to put him on the left. You put him next to Robinson, so that kind of matchup, that Fulham matchup is kind of already there. For me, Richards has to play the middle, and then McKenzie, and that's what I'm saying. The McKenzie one for me, it's either McKenzie or Miles Robinson, one of those two, whatever pairing, and we'll see this March. I just feel like Richards has to be the leader. He's got to be the vocal. He's got to be the guy that organizes. He can be the guy that can cover either, let's just say it's McKenzie, or he can cover Tim with his speed getting in behind. He reads the game well for me, and that's why I have him in the middle, so he can make up a lot of, if Tim Ream gets beat because of speed, he can get there and cover. So, listen, I like a back five just because when we defend, you're blocking all the zones possible between Robinson and Des and three center backs, too strong. And in a World Cup, it's the same thing. A team gets the ball, the other team drops into their mid block or low block. They defend, they win it. The other team drops, they hit the counter. So, I just feel like, for me, the key to this whole thing, it's always the same. It's the guy in the middle. How well does Richards lead? How well does he organize? How well can he cover behind McKenzie or behind Tim Ream? Can Tim Ream cover where Des goes? So it just kind of little blocks that fit quite nicely right now, except for the McKenzie, Miles Robinson. That's the only one, I got to be honest. I even thought about putting Tessman back there. You know what I mean? But because he's played a little bit of center back, but I like him and Adams in the midfield. I think that when you talk about a World Cup and you want to be successful, you got to have two guys in the midfield who are very strong. They can win balls and break game up. And then you give the ball, and I'll tell you this, just like Ganser told me in 90, Cello, your job is to win the ball. Break the play up, win it. Do not dribble, do not pass. Give the freaking ball to Tab and to Hearts and stand there. Let them do the rest. You stand there. So I kind of look at those two guys as let everybody else do their job. You do your job.
What Richards did last year in the Gold Cup, and I know the Gold Cup wasn't the best performance from the U.S. overall, but I thought he put in a man's performance, right? Yeah. Like he graduated to, okay, I'm not just the talented young player. I'm actually the leader of this team. But you're right. We're still looking for the right partner. It's interesting to me to think back, though, to that South Korea game. Because the first half of that South Korea game, in the friendly after the Gold Cup, the U.S., with close to a first-choice 11, got played off the pitch. And then it felt to me, and I think we all kind of said it afterwards, that Pochettino changed the formation. Yeah. It was the first time we were really out of the 4-4-2 and really into the 3-4-2-1. And if you ask Mauricio Pochettino, he will say that's not true. We've played a 4-4-2 the whole time. And I think he's lying. I think he is fibbing because we all see it. Okay, you drop into a mid and then a deep block. Yes, it's banks of four and you have a 4-4-2. But it's very clear that the U.S. changed from wide overloads with an overlapping left back to
Yep.
a sort of solo wing back on each side.
Yep.
And that is why I struggle with any 11 that doesn't include Max Arston. And it's not a like for like with Anthony Robinson. And one of the things that I want to see with Jedi when he comes in March is, can you play him as sort of the left center back in the back three, back five? Because he's big and strong enough to defend center forwards. But also, when he gets on the ball on that back line, he can actually break lines with the ball on his foot. He could actually scramble opposing midfields by carrying the ball forward, and that would allow Arston to push forward on the left. And we've seen how damaging he can be to opposing back lines, especially when they're packed
But let
in.
me ask you this, Doyle, or Tab, both of you. Where does Robinson play? Jedi play for Fulham.
Yeah, he plays as an overlapping left back.
Okay, so now you're going to take, but hold on, you're going to take a guy who is naturally going down the left side, attacking, and you're going to take that out of him, and you're going to put him as a center back. He's not going to attack like he does at Fulham or does with Ashton. So you're taking the best attribute that he has, that he is dangerous going down the wing. He can run at players. His work rate is fantastic. And you're going to put him as a center back. Arston doesn't give me what Robinson does. I like him. If something was to go wrong, I think as a wing back, you can put Arston in. He's a good player. I enjoy watching him play. But he doesn't bring to me what Robinson does. So now you're taking away part of your offense to make sure your back line, maybe he's comfortable. And now you're going to have to convince him in 4 months that this is your new position. I wouldn't take that chance if I'm Pochettino, changing a guy's position like that to something he's not natural to play in, to make sure, because Tim Ream does a nice job. He's a little older, but he reads the game well. He puts himself in good position. He never gets himself, if you watch him, Tim Ream never gets himself in a foot race. He always knows if it's going to go deep. He reads it, he pulls back, and he covers the space. So I'm not sure I would agree with Arston coming in and putting Robinson as a center back. I don't know about you guys. That's just my opinion.
I'll say, just like I did when Tony Meola was here and we were talking about goalkeeping, which is a position that I don't even care to discuss. But I'll just say that I'll trust your judgment on the center back situation. My concern was always about Tim Ream and his inability to get to stay with a forward, because he really truly hasn't done it in MLS either, hasn't done it that well, at least for the last 12 months. That's a big concern for me. So I think inevitably, if Tim Ream's going to be on the field, we need to have 3 center backs. In terms of changing Robinson and putting him back, I do agree with that, Marcelo, that potentially changing his position when he's doing really well on the left side would likely hurt his game a little bit. At the same time, I have to say, Matt's suggestion is not necessarily a bad one. And the reason I'll say this is only for this reason. I think Anthony Robinson, and I think a lot of people will agree with me, that he has been the best player that we had on the U.S. national team for about 4 or 5 years in a row. And because of that, when he was hurt, Max Arston stepped in, and to be fair, he made us forget about Anthony Robinson. That was huge for me, because I thought that would be such a huge hole to fill, with the one player who has been carrying the national team from that left side. And Arston came in, and we didn't miss a beat. Yeah, the first couple games are a little difficult, but once he settled in, man, Arston can do the job. And so I think, to Matt's point, there could be something there in terms of, look at our first round opponents, right? You have Paraguay, they will likely sit and wait for us. You have potentially, Turkey could be the most difficult team, but I think with what we saw from Turkey last summer, I think against Turkey we beat ourselves. So there's a good chance that we're still going to have the ball a lot, and now you give a chance to have 2 guys who could potentially overlap each other to get forward. So I think there's certainly something there as well.
Listen, here's I've become I guess I stopped evaluating players at the Gold Cup. How's that? Is that unfair? The only time but listen, we play it. I mean, it's a great tournament. It gets an opportunity for all these young guys to get some caps. My judgment came on the final. How's that? I judge players when you play a big game. I judge a player now, and when we do Gold Cup, is when they get a final. They're playing against Mexico. They're playing who stands out, who can handle that pressure, who can handle now playing a bigger team. Because listen, to this day, Mexico's our biggest rival, and we all hate each other. We're friends now from that 90 group, but we kick the shit out of each other. Ask Lexi and Ramon Ramirez. Ask all those guys. So when I look at the Gold Cup, I looked at that final. Who's going to stand out? Who's going to grab this game by the balls? Who's going to show that they belong here? And tell me who did that this last Gold Cup. Tell me who really grabbed you in that final and said, damn, that kid could play at a higher level because he played against Mexico. Exactly.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I don't remember.
So that's what I really go by. So when I saw that, I was just like, okay, well, So listen, like I said, I think Arsenal's a good player. And you're right, Tab. I think if you have if you do it right, you could have two overlapping players. My concern in a World Cup is you got to freaking defend, and you got to know how to defend first. And when you're playing as a center back, you've got to look to your right, you've got to look to your left, and especially if you're going to play that position, there's a lot of room to cover. When you're playing down the left-hand side like Jedi does, where does he have to defend?
Yeah,
and one angle, and that's it.
And by the way, you could do it on the opposite side with Freeman.
Yeah,
you could do Freeman,
which you did in the Gold Cup,
right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's something that I really like, to be honest. So there's options to do that on either side.
Yeah.
It is something for Pochettino to solve because, I mean, Jedi has been fantastic for the U.S. for a long time and fantastic for Fulham as that overlapping left back, which Pochettino hasn't really been using for the past 6 months. So it is something, whether it means Arston at wingback or maybe Tim Weah playing inverted at wingback. I'm really interested to see what the coach does.
I thought you guys
March.
were going to beat me up for Tessman, not Robinson and Tim. So.
No. I tell you what happens with Tessman now, because Tessman is a great call. I think he's a good compliment. He's a good compliment to Tyler Adams. Probably the best compliment he can have. I think the issue the coach is going to have, which is a great one to have, is you have both McKinney and Tillman in great form.
Yeah.
How do you fit both and still have Tillman and Adams? You really can't. And that's even if you push Weah out wide. Because right now, as well as Weah is doing, you don't necessarily have a position for him. No. You have to find it. You're going to have to send them wide.
Yeah. He's in a fight with Dest and Freeman on one side and Arston and I guess Jedi Robinson on the other side. The other argument for Tessman, the reason I didn't fight you on it, his range of passing, his ability to get on the ball and set tempo and then use those wing backs, which have become so important for the U.S. over this past 6-game stretch, starting in September with that draw against South Korea.
So does Berhalter or does Roldan make the team?
Roldan 100% makes the team.
Really? Over Berhalter?
And what told me, I think Pochettino loves him. And what told me that was, first of all, he's the only one who's, I think, played all 6 games during this 6-game stretch. And he didn't start against Uruguay. And he was in the midst of, he had played a ton for the Sounders, and he was kind of out of gas. And Pochettino put him on for the final 10 minutes of that game anyway. And to me, that tells me the coach wants to reward a player for what the player's done. And maybe I'm reading too much into, because I love Christian Roldan, and I don't think I'm the only one. Certainly the guys in that locker room love him too.
Yeah, and you still have other guys. You have Cardozo, you have Aiden Morris, who's having a great season. You just heard his coach this weekend say how much he loves coaching Aiden Morris because he's so much about the team. The perfect guy to have. Berhalter obviously has done well. There are so many. I think there's going to be a couple of guys who deserve to go to World Cup who just unfortunately won't be able to make it.
Yeah, it happens every time. Time for us to take one more break. We'll be right back with Marcelo's 1994 World Cup story about a certain pass from someone else who's on this podcast right now. Thanks for listening to Inside American Soccer. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Okay, welcome back to Inside American Soccer. We have talked all things U.S. men's national team, all things transfer market over the previous 45 minutes, but now it's time for a little bit of story time. Let's go back 32 years. Let's go inside the locker room before that big game for the U.S. against Colombia in the World Cup in 1994. And that bicycle kick we've already referenced 5 times, but let's talk about it again because it was such a beautiful, spectacular moment, Marcelo.
Listen, I wouldn't have had to do it if Tab would have put the ball where it was supposed to go, and that was in front of me, not behind me. But I'm going to let that slide for this one. Listen, it's something that came natural. My dad told me a long time ago, as a center back, you've got to learn to do things to stand out a little bit. And the one thing you have is you're able to jump decently well. So we practiced and practiced. I used to practice bicycle kicks. I saw Pele do it. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I've broken lamps. Ask Mom. She's still upset about the lamps I've broken. But it was just something as a kid that I wanted to do. Did I ever think that I would pull one off in a World Cup? No. Listen, I got lucky. I scored with a concussion against Columbus and got the goal of the year off that bicycle kick. Didn't even remember it. I scored one with the under-20s. And I think it just surprises people to see, one, a defender do that. And two is, you know what? I like to be a little different. So I started practicing that, and you don't try to do it in a game, but when Tab put that ball, it was instinctual that I saw it, I turned, and I hit it and just put it wide.
Yeah, well, you may think it was a missed kick, but I put it exactly wrong. Yeah, of course. Always with the corner kicks, our idea was always to look. Alexi would come first across the 6, and then Marcelo would come behind. My job was to put the ball in there for one of those 2 big guys and not miss them. I missed both in that case, but Marcelo was able to react. And I was going to say exactly that, Marcelo, that, people will remember you a lot for that bicycle kick that went barely wide, but yet a lot of people haven't seen the great bicycle kicks that you've scored throughout your career. And by the way, I think the reason that we talk about this so much is because and obviously I've had the experience to coach in MLS and to coach in other leagues. And there's just not many defenders that bring so much to the table on the attacking part of the field. And, I can't imagine the value you would have today on a team, considering that you couldn't only be a shutdown defender, but that you're a constant danger on the other side of the field. So, it's definitely nice to have in your toolbox, be able to do that. But some exciting moments for sure.
Yeah. Listen, I think every kid sees Pele do it, or they see Ronaldo do it now, and it's just one of those things that it's just, I don't know. For me, it was just one of the coolest things. It was like a challenge. Can I kick a ball over my head? Can I reach it? How do I time it? How do I, there's a process to it, but now you look back and it was just one of those cool moments that people still to this day, 32 years later, and people are still talking about that one moment that we had a corner kick against Colombia.
You guys both had amazing moments in that World Cup. Tab, of course, the pass to Ernie for like just one of the greatest passes in U.S. men's national team history, and it's still burned into my memory. And now we have this group coming into the World Cup this summer. It's advice time. You guys have lived it. What advice do the two of you have for this national team? Just one piece of advice for these guys heading into the World Cup at home this summer.
Wow. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. You know what? We didn't get to enjoy it as much because we worked every day. We worked as a club team. We fought. We scratched. We had to promote the game. Listen, I remember seeing a video before the 94 World Cup, and they asked, do you know who Tab Ramos is? And they said, I think he's a hockey player. Okay? So we had to work so hard to promote this game. We had to work so hard to come back from injuries, to integrate all the European guys back to us, that I don't think we fully got to enjoy the moment. These guys are all playing in Europe. They know what pressure's like. They're making great money. I have to say Tab, John, and those guys who went to Europe and to Spain opened those doors for all of these guys to have an opportunity to go there. So when you get there and you make it, you know what? Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Because representing our country, not a lot of people get to do. Playing in a World Cup, not a lot of people get to do. But we got to represent our country in our own World Cup. And that was the most special World Cup to open people's eyes to what we were capable of doing. to gaining that respect in the football world, that we came out and we got out of the group. We beat the best team in South America that year, and we did it with class, we did it with pride, and we did it with hard work. And so for these guys, when you put on that frickin' jersey, you've got to give everything you have. There's nothing left on the fucking table, and excuse the language, because that's where I'm at. And for me, when you walk off that field, you better walk off saying we did everything possible today, that we couldn't have given any more. Because if you leave anything on the table, then you shouldn't be on that team.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add to that, that I think players still don't realize what it's going to be like this summer. I think they don't realize how much this country is going to be sort of turned over to them, and how excited our fans are going to be to follow them. And like you said, they're used to pressure. They're used to having to win games. But I certainly think that this World Cup will be the World Cup that really puts soccer on the real map in this country, because the way that the media will follow this team will be like never before.
Yep.
Guys, great advice. A great way to spend a morning chatting with the two of you. And I'm sure our listeners enjoyed every bit of it as well. Thank you all for listening to Inside American Soccer. Please do rate, review, and subscribe. And please continue to leave your comments and questions on all our platforms, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Tom needs something to read while he's on baby duty for the next few weeks. And we will be back, of course, a week from now. So we will see you all next week.